Harriet Tubman, former slave and leader in the Underground Railroad, was also a Union spy. And the first woman in U.S. history to lead a military expedition. Here's how. After escaping slavery herself, Harriet Tubman rescued slaves throughout the 1850s. And when the Civil War started, she offered her services to the Union war effort. In 1863, she was assigned to Colonel James Montgomery to work for the Union Army as a nurse, cook, and spy. Tubman disguised herself as an aging woman and moved behind Confederate lines unnoticed, gathering information from a network of informants. Slaves traded information in exchange for a chance at freedom, and sometimes cash. The covert operation was approved by President Abraham Lincoln and run by Secretary of State William Seward. In South Carolina, Tubman worked in Union-controlled contraband camps, where escaped slaves sought safety. There, she recruited local informants and found out where other slaves were being held. Tubman and other spies would gather intel about Confederate plans, such as where they had dropped barrels filled with gunpowder to attack Union boats. On June 1, 1863, alongside Colonel Montgomery, she led 300 black soldiers to raid rice plantations along the Combahee River in South Carolina, making her the first woman in American history to plan and lead a military operation. The soldiers ransacked the plantation, setting fire to buildings and freeing more than 700 slaves. Tubman continued to work as a nurse, cook, and spy for another year, but she was only paid $200 for her entire war service, and was never paid all of the benefits owed to her, despite multiple appeals to the federal government. It wasn't until 1890, 2 years after her husband's death, that she received a small pension for being the widow of a war veteran. And it wasn't until 1899 that her pension was increased, but that didn't make up for the benefits she deserved. It would take another 100 years for Tubman to get the money she was owed, when in 2002 Congress was again alerted about the pension, and soon after provided $11,750 to the Harriet Tubman home in Auburn, New York.
Teacher, humanitarian, and the founder of the American Red Cross, Clara Barton is one of the most honored women in American history. She was born on Christmas Day, 1821, in Oxford, Massachusetts.
At a very young age, she had to nurse her older brother who was quite sick, and very likely that led to her embracing the nursing skills and learning the skills that she used later on in the Civil War.
Clara Barton started off as a teacher and opened the nation's first free public school in 1854, before moving to Washington, D.C. to work for the U.S. Patent Office a year later.
Barton was, if not the first, one of the first women to work for the U.S. government in any capacity.
During the Civil War, Barton started aiding the wounded Union soldiers flooding into the Capitol. Soon she changed her focus to the front lines.
She saw that there was a need at the front for supplies, and she spent her own funds to bring them.
Barton earned the nickname Angel of the Battlefield when she showed up after midnight at the Battle of Cedar Mountain with a wagon load of supplies for the surgeons, and they had long since run out of things earlier in the day. She did that time and time again at small battles and very big battles, including the very bloody Battle of Antietam.
There's a story that at Antietam, she was so close to the battlefield that a bullet actually pierced through the sleeve of her dress.
When the Civil War came and shook up the social structure just enough, women came pouring out of their houses. They came pouring out of their farms directly into the public arena. as if to say, we can make a difference, we will make a difference.
There were many, many women who wrote in their diaries, I wish I could put on men's clothing and go to war.
Recent scholarship has indicated that between 500 and 1,000 women went into military service. Some of them for very short blocks of time and some for 2 or 3 years, depending on what led to their discovery or whether they were able to maintain anonymity throughout.
There are a number of cases of women going to war with their husbands or their fiancés, and a number of girls went to war with their brothers.
How could they pass the medical inspection? Well, reading about a medical inspection was you had 2 feet and you could walk, and therefore you were inducted into the Army.
The Civil War armies were very different from our modern armies. They lived outside almost all the time. Large proportions of the soldiers were young, which meant it wasn't that unusual to have a soldier who had a higher-pitched voice or who had not yet sprouted an obvious beard. So women who looked like clean-shaven or beardless young men found it easier to hide. They didn't take their clothes off. It helped that the uniforms were very baggy. In the 19th century, notions about gender were so clearly associated with particular forms of dress that if you saw someone in pants, it simply didn't occur to you that that person was anything but a man.